ciliated woodpecker.
My name is Joshua. I used to be a carpenter in the city, but then I had the bright idea to drag a 32-foot wooden sailboat into the woods of eastern Canada where I'm living off-grid. Built in Japan in 1966, for almost half a century she sailed the seven seas only to be marooned on the other side of the world. I aim to fix that. The only problem, I've never worked on a boat before. This is a boat in the woods. March 30th, 2026. Back on scraping the inside of the hull to get ready for reframing. It's tedious work, but very satisfying to see the wood slowly being revealed from under the flaking paint. I'm amazed at how much seeing the clean planking come through is positively affecting my mental state. I'll be honest, every time I went below deck and was greeted by the cracked frames, paint chips, and chunks of debris piling up in the bilge, it really bummed me out. But now it's just cracked frames. March 31st. As I'm scraping, an added bonus is that I'm able to go over the hull with a fine-toothed comb to see which timbers need attention. Unfortunately, the bilge stringers are looking worse for wear in the middle of the hull. The bilge stringer runs fore and aft, perpendicular to the frames to give them extra strength. I have a feeling the only reason my boat is still boat-shaped is because of the bilge stringers. After a bunch of scraping, I took a break to do a supply run into town. There, I bought 40 feet of half-inch clear tubing, some fittings, marine silicone, and food coloring to make a device that's going to help me get this boat back in shape. A water level. I'm going to use it to take some measurements, but first I need to let the silicone cure overnight. In the meantime, I vacuumed out the bilge where I had been scraping and then packed up for the evening. April 1st. With the silicone cured, I started assembling the water level by heating one end of the tubing with my lighter to soften it so that I could press it onto the barb fitting. Then I needed water. Luckily it was raining, so I put the plastic screw tub under a drip coming off of the tarp shelter and got back to scraping while I waited for it to fill. It's pretty dark in the cabin when the tarp is overhead and the sky is clouded over, so I set up some string lights I was using in the tent. Once I had more light, I took some time to remove what I think was the chain locker, and then scraped the loose paint in the bow. I'll get the more stubborn stuff with the chemical paint stripper, but I'm waiting on a proper respirator to come in the mail first. Okay. Once I had access, I could see the rot in a piece of the center line starting, called the gripe, or apron. It seems like far less of it is rotten than I thought, though. Just the very top is getting soft. Oh no. Once I had the bow section cleaned up, I got back to the water level. It stopped raining almost immediately after I placed the tub to fill up, and then I accidentally kicked it over and dumped what little rainwater was in there. So I just filled it up with groundwater from the wet area nearby. Then I put some green food coloring in the water for visibility and hung it off the transom so that the water was level with the water line on the boat at the stern. Nice. Then I walked the end of the tubing to the bow and waited for the water level in the tube to equalize with the tub. It looks like I'm going to need to lift the bow about 5 inches to get the water line leveled. When I had Andrew out last week, he strongly recommended getting the water line leveled before I started the framing process. I'll mess around with it more tomorrow. Just before I packed up, I had a call with Michael, who's the director of the Wooden Boat School in Maine. Hey, Michael.
Hey, Joshua, how you doing, man?
Good, how are you?
Great. I'm great. Yeah, then I would probably, if you have a section of planking that's no good, I would take that strake off all the way fore and aft and do that in a couple of places.
Mm-hmm.
so that when you're framing, you can get clamps in and frame.
We chatted about the plan as well as how to get the boat back in shape. I still don't fully understand the process yet, but I feel like I'm learning quickly. April 2nd. The parts for the truck were scheduled for delivery today, so I thought I would get the disassembly done and then head back to the boat and wait for UPS. They ended up coming at the end of the day, so I had to finish it later than I expected. Okay, so while I'm waiting for the parts for the truck to arrive, I thought I would just give a quick overview of the next steps in the project, because the two conversations that I had with the shipwrights, Andrew and then later Michael, it kind of shifted the focus of the framing job in a very good way, and I'm glad that I talked to them before I started. So I was also going to give a demonstration of this device a little more, but it's frozen because it's below zero right now. So I'll just explain it verbally. So this line that you can see here, where there's a darker area and then a lighter area of the planking, this is the water line. Everything below it was painted with bottom paint, and then everything above it with topside paint. And this line is based off of a calculation of the weight distribution of the boat. So essentially, when the boat is in the water, that line will be perfectly parallel with the surface if all of your ballast is in the right spot. So in order to check if the water line is actually level, I made this, which is this is a water level. And basically what you do is you fill this vessel with water, and then you can use food coloring to see it better, and have a tube coming out. And when you bring the tube up, no matter how long it is, as long as the tube is full of water, it will always stay at the same level as the water in this container. I just forgot to mention something pretty important. So you can see I have a cap on this end. This is just so that I can move the tube around without spilling water. But if that's in there, it won't give me any accurate readings. You can see that the water level isn't dropping because there's a vacuum in that little air gap now. So basically you have to have both ends of the water level open to the atmosphere for this to work properly. So if I put this next to the water line and then bring the tube up to the front, or the bow, which is what I did yesterday, I'll be able to check the level in reference to this line at the stern. And so what I found yesterday when I did that is that it's 5 5/8 higher at the stern mark than it is at the bow. So this comes in line right here with this joint. That's the water line. And so I have to lift the boat up now 5 5/8 at the bow. So that will basically level the boat sort of bow to stern. Then once that's done, I have to do the same thing on the sides. But another complication is that this boat is going out of shape. So it'll be sagging. So this water line likely isn't perfectly straight anymore. Now, getting a boat back in shape is no easy task, but thankfully Michael has offered to come out and help me with that part. He has a lot of experience with restoring wooden boats. At some point in May-ish, we're still working on a date, he's going to come out and actually help me jack the boat in certain spots to get the shape back into it, which is just kind of a process that I can't even, I can imagine doing it, but it really scares me. And then once the boat is level and everything's back into shape and there's no twist in it, then I can start framing, because if I do the frames now, it's gonna lock it in its current shape. So yeah, once that's done, I can start fastening the frames in, and then that's a huge part of this job done. So the next phase of this project is going to be pretty big. I have to prepare next by bracing for some pretty extensive demolition. I have to remove the build stringers, the shear clamp, and then everything above that, which is the deck structure, the deck itself, the deck house, and these teak roof beams. So there's a lot involved in that, but there's a lot of bracing that I have to do. When it comes time to do the build stringers and the shear clamp, I'm going to put what are called outwells on the outside of the hull, basically matching the shear clamp and build stringer on the outside with just like some spruce or hemlock. And so that'll help support the hull once those are out, but I still have access to do the frames from the inside. And then the deck, I can only take off once I've braced, I think the term is a thwart ships, but basically from port to starboard, I need to put some bracing to stop the hull from spreading out once I take the deck off. Now I could take the covering boards off, which are the outmost plank on the deck, and then hammer the frames down, but I don't think the structure is sound enough to do that. And really, I just want to be able to have full access so that I can very quickly take the frames out of the steam box, put them into their sockets in the keel, and then bend them into shape. So yeah, I think having access will be much better, and the fact that I have to rebuild the deck structure anyway, I might as well go this route. Sorry. Well, that was a bit rude of me to interrupt their conversation, but it was also pretty cool to see them. So yeah, like I was saying, next steps are continuing to mill the timber. I want to basically have all of this framing stock ready, plus like 10% in case of breakage. And then while I'm doing that, I'm also going to be reinforcing the hull, getting ready to do this demo, and basically preparing for Michael's visit in May, when we can get the boat back into shape and then can start framing, which is pretty exciting. I need to see some progress So yeah, some pretty cool work ahead, and I hope you'll stick around for that. I know a lot of people are sort of jonesing for boat work, and I'm definitely one of them. I need to see some progress for my own mental sanity. But even this scraping, like this has been some big visual progress, which I needed to see, and I also needed to clean this up so that I'm ready for that framing job. And speaking of which, I'm going to continue cleaning up the bilge now underneath the engine because it's nightmarish. In the meantime, I cleaned the bilge where the engine was and then scraped the hull where the galley used to be. Finally, I finished the truck and wrapped up the week. I'm really happy with progress. Hopefully next week I'll be harvesting my first larch tree and maybe even milling it up.